Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely wild. We are going to objectively audit a deeply unsettling source text that breaks down a pretty terrifying physics concept. The core claim here? That the global mood is allegedly being controlled, not through traditional things like the 24-hour news cycle or chemicals in the water, but literally through electromagnetic warfare. We're going to unpack the exact claims made in these documents and look at the complex physics and biology they say is at play. It's a really fascinating read, so let's just jump right in.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're doing a strict forensic audit broken down into 5 parts. 1. The Planetary Heartbeat. 2. The Gakona Weapon. 3. Boiling the Ionosphere. 4. The Entrainment Protocol. And 5. Drugging the Grid.
All right, starting off with Part 1, the Planetary Heartbeat. This establishes our biological baseline.
The source text kicks things off by defining a highly specific phenomenon called the Schumann Resonance. Now, imagine the space between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, which starts roughly 60 kilometers up in the sky. According to the text, this space acts like a massive, spherical resonant cavity. Because this cavity is constantly getting hammered by the immense energy of global lightning strikes, like 50 to 100 times every single second, it essentially causes the entire cavity to ring, just like a giant bell.
And here is where it gets highly specific. The fundamental frequency of this ringing, the Earth's measurable physical baseline frequency, is exactly 7.83 Hertz. The authors argue that this is quite literally the heartbeat of the planet. It's a life-sustaining carrier wave that our biology actually evolved within. So to be clear, in the context of this text, this isn't some mystical myth. It's presented as a hard, measurable baseline.
Now, why does that number matter? Well, the text makes this brilliant biological connection. When you compare the Earth's natural 7.83 Hz signal directly against the human brain's natural evolutionary states, it's a near-perfect match. This planetary frequency falls right smack on the boundary of our theta waves, which sit in the 4 to 8 Hz range, and our alpha waves, which are 8 to 12 Hz. The argument here is that our brains are physically tuned to this planetary fundamental frequency for things like calm, intuition, and cellular healing. We are literally part of the circuit.
Okay, moving on to Part 2, the Gakona Weapon. Let's look at the hardware.
According to the source's indictment, HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program up in Gakona, Alaska, is completely misunderstood by the general public. The text claims this is absolutely not some benign academic research station studying the weather. Instead, they expose it as a planetary-scale, phased-array scalar weapon, and the specs are honestly pretty intimidating. We're talking 180 massive crossed-dipole antennas that are capable of blasting 3.6 megawatts of continuous high-frequency radio energy straight up into the sky.
Now, you might be wondering, where are they getting this? Well, the authors ground this sci-fi-sounding claim in a literal technical manual. They point straight to U.S. Patent 4686605A, which was authored by physicist Bernard Eastland. And get this, the patent is literally titled Method and Apparatus for Altering a Region in the Earth's Atmosphere, Ionosphere, and/or Magnetosphere. For the authors of our source text, this patent is the ultimate smoking gun. It supposedly proves the deliberate intent to weaponize our upper atmosphere using radio waves.
Which brings us to Part 3, Boiling the Ionosphere. This is where they explain the actual hack. The text breaks down the mechanism into 3 pretty brutal physical steps. Step 1, the HAARP facility pumps those megawatts of focused, high-frequency radio waves upward. Step 2, this immense amount of energy physically boils and pushes a localized section of the ionosphere out into space. And then, Step 3 is the rebound. As that boiled ionosphere snaps back into place, it acts like a giant virtual antenna, bouncing massive, artificially altered, extremely low-frequency or ELF waves back down to the Earth's surface. It's essentially a massive energetic ricochet.
Next up is Part 4, the Entrainment Protocol. Let's talk about the biological effect this supposedly has on us. The source details a very specific biological vulnerability known as the frequency-following response, otherwise known as entrainment. Basically, this is a phenomenon where a human's brain will physically and entirely involuntarily synchronize its internal electrical firing to match an external artificial electromagnetic field. Think about that for a second. If you pulse an invisible electromagnetic field at a specific frequency into someone's environment, their brain chemistry physically alters to match it. It is a literal physiological hack.
And here is exactly how the text claims this is weaponized against the public. Remember those human brainwave states we talked about earlier?
Well, if the deep state, as the authors call them, intentionally alters the baseline frequency and bounces a low-frequency theta wave down to the surface, right in that 4 to 8 Hz range, they can supposedly induce forced lethargy, confusion, or just generalized docility. But conversely, if they crank that ambient frequency up into the beta wave spectrum around 15 to 20 Hz, the frequency-following response guarantees the population's brains will mirror that frequency instead, meaning they can artificially induce global anxiety, paranoia, and aggression on demand.
Finally, we reach part 5, drugging the grid, the source's final verdict.
The core indictment here is that by intentionally altering the baseline frequency of the planet, the deep state achieves total manipulation without leaving a single physical footprint. They completely bypass chemical intervention. They don't need to spray a single chemical in the air or put drugs in the water supply. Instead, they simply drug the electromagnetic grid itself. They are supposedly bathing entire populations in invisible frequencies designed to dictate our neurological states, completely wirelessly. Which leaves us with this incredibly chilling question to ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. Based on everything presented in this text, are your emotions actually your own? Are you just tuning into the grid? It's a fascinating, deeply disturbing premise derived straight from our source material today. Thank you so much for joining me for this analysis. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you in the next explainer.